Hi guys, so I welcome you all to day 28 of our anthropology lecture series. So today we'll be completing the topic 2.2. We had already started with the concept of society, so let's move further with it. So yeah, what is a social group now? We had talked about what a society is. So social group is also going to be similar only. So it is basically a collection of human beings, right? But as we had talked yesterday also, just a collection of human beings is not going to make any society or a social group. So then what makes it a social group? It is the behavior, or we could say the reciprocal relationship, or the common activities that they are going to take out together, that is going to make it a social group, right? So it is collection of human beings who are brought into social behavior with one another, right? So if we take a definition by Sheriff and Sheriff, they say that number of individuals in a definite status and role relationships. Now don't worry about status and role, we'll move with it. I'll make you understand what is the specific meaning of status and role here. But anybody, any two individuals, if this is one and this is one, they have specific role towards each other, specific status to one another, possessing a certain set of values and norms, right? Values and norms of a group, okay? Regulating behavior of individual members, at least in matters of consequence to the group. Now just try to understand, these are two people who are in a same social group, okay? So now what is a social group? That first they are going to interact with each other, that means they are going to have a specific status and role relationship with each other. One is this. Second, this social group will have its own norms and values, right, which the group is going to regulate on its individual members. For example, I say this is a religious society, this is a religious group, right? This is a religious society. So for example, you go to a gurudwara, right? So you see there are people who watch out that अगर आप कभी golden temple भी गए होंगे तो they will make sure that आप, if you're a girl, आपके सिर से जो दुपट्टा है या whatever handkerchief if you've put, वो उतरना नहीं चाहिए, right? That is just a mark of respect of the place, the social group that you're going into, उसके लिए it's a mark of respect. Yeah, for example, if you go to somebody's cremation, you see that people will behave in a certain way. That means they will not be too loud, or they will dress a certain way. What are these? These are certain behaviors, certain norms of values of a group, right? And people of that group will regulate individual members on that. For example, if you go to that gurudwara and you take out the dupatta from your head, there will be people, और जो भी वो होते हैं जो महंत सर whatever जो भी उनको बोलते हैं, I do not know that, वो आएंगे आपके पास and they'll politely request you to keep it back on, because as long as you're a part of that social group, you need to follow those norms and standards. So this is what it is saying, ki people are going to interact with each other, there are going to be values and norms of the group, and the group will regulate and monitor whether the individuals are following that group behavior and norms, at least which is of consequence to the group. For example, that means if you go out of the gurdwara and you take out the dupatta, they are not going to come back to you and say ki oh dupatta laga lo wapis, because they are only concerned about what you do in that social group. They are not concerned about कि आप बाहर जाकर क्या कर रहे हो, right? So वो उस जगह का एक standardized behavior है which you follow, right? आप temple जाते हो, you make sure that you will keep your shoes out, you will never go with the shoes, right? So these are certain standardized behaviors, right? Okay, so now characteristics. characteristics are going to be more or less similar for everything, like reciprocal relationship. Obviously, a society can never be formed, a social group can never be formed when there is no reciprocal relationship between two people, right? It is only the reciprocal relationship which is going to make it a social group, and this was said by Parsons and Lapierre, right? Then there is a sense of unity. Of course, there is a sense of unity. For example, you are an organization, right? You are a workplace, an organization, and you go at any fest or any workplace meeting, right? You all, for example, these are the people who are from one organization, right? Of course, they are going to behave with unity when it comes to other social group, no matter how much rivalry they might be having on in their own, right? But when it comes to another external group, right, external group, this group is always going to behave with a sense of unity, right? For example, India might be having its internal conflicts based on caste, religion, gender, communities, but when it comes to fighting with external force like a China or a Pakistan, every Indian would be united at that front, right? So that is what a sense of unity is, that somewhere down the line that group has a social feeling of being united together. Then common interest, of course, a group is only formed when there is common interest. For example, a religious group, it will be only formed when people think alike, right? People of different sects cannot make a religious social group, right? For example, if I say that a Sikh or a Muslim, right, a Hindu cannot have a same religious group, right? They might have another group in which they all are a part of, for example, a sports group, for example, a university, for example, a school, but they might not be a part of a same religious group, right? So when the common interests align, that is where a social group is formed. Then group norms, of course, there are group norms. For example, university is a group, university is an educational society, so there are certain group norms. That means you cannot misbehave with the teachers, or you cannot bunk the classes. You have to pay attention to what the general guidelines of your university are, right? So there are always certain group norms. And then there is similar behavior. Obviously, a group which has similar common interests, where people feel united, where there are standardized behavior, so it is going to put some kind of a you know pressure on you that you will behave similarly. It is not that you are going to behave alike, but there is going to be similar behavior, right? That means आप लोगों का thought process somewhere down the line will be on one page. That is what it is, right? So these are the characteristics of a social group. Just try to take any example like a university or a school or some religious group or any educational group, family, anything which is a social group. Family is also a social group. There are reciprocal relationships, there is sense of unity, there is common interest, there are group norms. That means, for example, in family, mother would say that you would not come back to home after like 8 o'clock, right? Or maybe whatever is laid on the table, everybody has to eat the same food. Nobody will demand for any other food. No junk food allowed. No TV while watching food, right? Sorry, not while watching, while eating food, right? So these are certain group norms, and then there is similar behavior. Everybody would eat the same thing, so nobody would come late. So any group you take up example in your head and just try and think, you'll get the characteristics. Yes. So now classification. Now how can we classify the groups? So first was Simmer, who tried to classify the groups on the basis of the number of individual. That is, monad means one, mono means one, right? Di means two, so dyad. Triad means three, and so on. So number of people, उस हिसाब से he tried to classify. Then it was, second classification was based on the membership, means that if you voluntarily joined a group or involuntarily joined a group. Means if we have to talk about voluntary, we can say a university, a religious group, a political group, right, a workplace organization that you are a part of. These are all voluntary organizations. That means you become a part of it by your own choice, right? Whereas involuntary would be something which you are born with or you do not have a choice about, right? For example, family. You cannot choose your family. No matter how the social group is, you have to be in that social group. Family is a social group. Whereas household, now this is a very important concept. Household is a voluntary social group. That means today I might choose to live with my parents, but tomorrow I might move out to live on my own, or to live with my brother, or to live with my extended family, friends, anybody. So where household is a voluntary concept, that means anybody can live with anybody. Family is a involuntary social group. That means family you cannot choose. Okay, my family is going to be the same irrespective of where I live, right? So these are two classifications, but by far the most accepted classification was Cooley's, that he tried to define what are primary groups, and after that secondary groups also came into, the other classification was the secondary groups. So what he believed, that primary groups are those groups which are very intimate, where there is direct personal contact, and obviously if there is direct contact, there is, it is very intimate, it is going to have a lot of uh, what you call it, influence on you. For example, if I call family a primary group, that means you have face to face contact with your parents, you interact with them, their influence on you is the largest, right? And so like friends also, they are also a primary group, right? So similarly, even friends have a lot of influence on, each other, right? So this is how they have mutual contact, intimacy is very very much there. You tend to be influenced by that group. So primary groups are small number of people in direct contact, whereas secondary groups, you can just imagine groups where, there is not that much personal contact, where mutual face to face interaction may be not possible, where the group is large, where the intimacy is less, where, so obviously if all this is there, तो उसका influence भी कम होगा. But we see in today's time the importance of secondary social groups is increasing. For example, if we talk about only social media, that is also a secondary group, na, because there you have different ways and means of connecting to people. For example, it could be Facebook, it could be Instagram, Telegram, YouTube. So from that also the groups are made, right? For example, you are a fan of a music artist, so right, so you'll call yourself that music artist ka fan, which everybody would call. So that is also a social group, but वहाँ पे intimacy is a lot less, right? जितनी आपकी family में intimacy होती है उतनी नहीं होती. You don't get to meet all those fans in your real life, right? So what happens is influence कम है. लेकिन if you see today, social media or any other secondary groups, they are exerting a lot more influence on a person, on how they think, on how they behave. For example, people are behaving similarly on social media, then your anything like any secondary group, which is your university, your anything which is a secondary group, you can just imagine any of it, has increased its importance in your life. लोग एक जैसा ड्रेस कर रहे हैं, एक जैसा खाते हैं, they try to think alike. So secondary social groups in today's time gaining a lot of importance. Now our last topic for the day would be, not the last topic, I mean one of the last topics and very important ones is social stratification. So you can just see here there are certain people who are taking the burden of the whole society in a way, right? And then there are certain other section of people, and as you go up the pyramid becomes a lot like thinner, and there are less people but having a lot of wealth, prestige, social status and value. So these you could say commoners, and these you could say the privileged ones, right? So let's study what a social stratification is. This is in Indian context, our Chaturvarn system or the caste system. So now social stratification. When society is divided in layers or stratas, you can say, that becomes a social stratification. That means society is a heterogeneous mix, right? वो तो होना ही है. It is never going to be homogeneous. That will be very utopian. Societies are different. That means every society will have different kind of people, different kind of genders, different kind of social status, uh, classes, castes, right? Races. So when there is inequality, this inequality creates a legitimized channel, through which people arrange themselves in hierarchies, and that is what social stratification is, right? So groups have unequal access to economic resources, power, prestige, and this unequal access is legitimized and institutionalized by the society, right? Like for example, these all groups differ in their economic power, in their social prestige, in their everything, right? Political power, and now it is legitimized by the fact ki this is how it is going to be. This is the Chaturvarn system, and untouchables would be the outcast. That means they do not fall in the Chaturvarn system also. This was legitimized for a long period of time by the society. That means they believed that this hierarchical system was right? So universal, this is a universal phenomena, and it's not like this is Chaturvarn system, so it is there in India, but this is not unique in its sense that it might not be the same in the Western world, in other parts of Southeast Asia, Asia, Africa, but definitely societies are divided on economic power, divided on social prestige, political power, right? So it might not be the caste system, but then there could be racism, there could be slavery, there could be gender biases, there could be anything which makes this society divided into groups, right? Members of the same group have common lifestyle and share common identity. Now this is, I want to give you a very unconventional example. For example, इसमें अगर हम women की बात करें, right? अगर हम women की बात करें, no matter how rich a woman is or how poor a woman is, the gender issues are the same, right? So no matter if you come from a household that is very privileged and you come from a privileged background, gender bias is a phenomenon that is universal to women, right? So that means members of the same group have similar lifestyle and same common identity. That means even if the women are economically different, but their identity as women, that gender bias that they will face, that is going to be same. And if we take about a group that is homogeneous, इधर तो हमने women की बात करी ना, there could be a privileged family की या non privileged, but if we talk about a homogeneous group, for example, if we talk about Dalits in India, right? If we take a example of Dalits in India, they will have a common identity. That means by and large they are a little less privileged than the whole society, and they are discriminated on the fact that they belong to a lower caste. Then all of this makes them exhibit a similar kind of a lifestyle, a similar kind of a common identity, right? And it goes similarly for other groups also, like if we consider minorities as a social group, then they will exhibit common lifestyle and common identity, right? So this is how it is. Now the basis of grouping. This grouping can be done on any ways. Either it could be class, that means social class, that is that, or economic class it could be, or political class it could be. So any way it could be done. Then it could be based on caste भी higher lower हो सकती है. Then it could be based on gender. Then it could be based on estate means the land and aristocracy and all, right? So in the ancient Europe times, the clergies and priests, they used to acquire a lot of land with them. So with that land and estates, उनके पास बहुत ज़्यादा social prestige आ जाती थी. So that was the thing. Then ethnicity. For example, if we talk about today's Kurds, or we talk about Rohingyas, right? So these are certain ethnic minorities that are discriminated the most against, right? So grouping can be anything. They exhibit a similar kind of behavior, right? Common identity, common lifestyle, and then there are biases against them. So grouping is only when the society is arranged hierarchically. That means who comes at the end and who comes at the top, that is how it is done. And it is always, you will see that there will be some form of discrimination when it comes to the lower strata of the group, right? Now status and role. Now this is what we were talking about, status and role. So let's get on with it. Now what is the status? For example, if I take these four kind of people in the society, that is Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, right? So he is shown as a worker. He could be a tradesman, he could be the leader or anybody, and he could be the one who teaches or like that, right? So what is the status? The status is person's social position. That means whenever we draw Indian system, Indian Chaturvarna system, right, the status acquired by a Brahmin would be at the top, right? The status acquired by a Shudra would be the last, and then they will be outcast, right? So this is the status. That means the position in the society, the ranking in the system, right? So that is what the status is. Now status is something which could be ascribed or it could be achieved. That means, what is ascribed? Ascribed is something which you have like by birth, right? And achieved is obviously you achieve it via your qualification, via your deeds, morals, all of that. So basically status would be a social ranking or a position that you get in a society via your family background, via your educational qualification, via your any personal or professional thing, right? So it could be ascribed as well as it could be achieved, right? So in this scenario it is seen that ascribed, say achieved one is better, because that you have got it on your own, there is merit to it, right? There is merit to it. And the thing is that then the society is not unfair. That means everybody has equal opportunity to get there, right? Just for the fact that you're a Brahmin's son doesn't make you a person who could be or who has the capability of being well read, right? Or just because you are a son of a Kshatriya doesn't give you that valor and bravery, right? So it is also possible that a Shudra son could be a Kshatriya, right? So when it is based on merit, qualification, then the society becomes a lot more unfair, it becomes a lot more equal and egalitarian, right? Whereas when the system becomes ascribed, there when the problem arises, because then you close the system, right? So ये चीज़ें हम आगे पढ़ेंगे in Indian anthropology. Do not worry about it, and all of you must be knowing all these things also. So let's not stretch it too far. Then the role. The role is when, see, now these, let me just first rub this all. Yeah. So now you can see that these are 4 people, right, in a society. If this person has a social position, all of them have a social position, right? That means when they interact, that status comes into being. For example, let's take a simpler example of a teacher and a student. So what is the position or status of the teacher? That he is going to come and he is going to teach the children, right? That's his role. And what is the ranking? Obviously teacher would have a higher social prestige and than a student, right? But then there is going to be a reciprocal relation between the two. That means role is always two-sided. It cannot be one-sided. For example, if you are a teacher, then there must be a student, right, who you can teach, right? Or if you are a mother, there must be some child whom you are a mother to, right? So that means role is always two ways. For example, if this is mother to this child is, he has a mother, right? So the role is both ways, and it shows your interaction with different social positions, right? For example, there is a mother, she has a role to play with respect to its child. That means she has to take care of the child, she has to feed her on time, she has to inculcate good values in her, and similarly the child will receive love from the mother. He will feel secured when around the mother. So this is what the role they have with respect to each other, and this role comes when there is a status, right? The status is that she is a mother to the child, right? So similarly there are different roles and different status that we have. For example, when you are a mother, you have a different role to play. And if this lady is a doctor too, then in her workplace she has a different role to play, and then she is a sister, then she has a different role to play, and all these statuses are different for her. Here the status is different, here the status is different, every place the status is different, and so is the role, right? So this all what all she can do, what all her status is and the roles are, it is called her role repertoire, right? I'll just write it, you can write it down. Repertoire is basically what you can perform, what all you can do, right? For example, if I say that I am a singer, I am a dancer, I am a good sport, and this is all my repertoire is, right? That means what all I can do. So role repertoire means what all roles you can perform, right? But it is seen that today the society has become so complex that there are multiple roles, that means multiple role repertoires that you have to play within, and that creates role strains, right? That means there are often you get into a fix, you get into a situation where you do not know, or you are unable to prioritize what you should do first, which role to play first, right? So then it creates role strains, role conflicts. So I think this topic is clear to you guys, right? Yeah. So social mobility is just the ability to move in that societal hierarchy, right? If you are able to move in that societal hierarchy, that means the group has social mobility. And this mobility can be upwards, it could be downwards also, it could be in any way. For example, and this would be vertical, this upwards and downwards would be vertical. For example, in the ancient times, when the Chaturvarna system was first created, it was created based on occupation. That means the person who would perform tasks of a Brahmin would be considered a Brahmin, and so on, right? That means if any person who chose to read the scriptures would become the Brahmin, and that was his occupation based. That means he could one family could have multiple you know multiple people who were from a different caste, right? For example, a person in the family is a Kshatriya, a person in a family is a Brahmin, a person in a family is a Shudra based on the occupation they performed. That means there was mobility. You could move upwards and downwards in the group based on what you were doing, right? So this is how vertical mobility is. In today's time, vertical mobility can be when you better your social status, or social, you come up in the ranking of the social hierarchy based on your qualification. Today people become doctor, people become engineer, civil servants. So that is how you can improve your status in the group, right? With constitutional rights also that has come in, the groups which are a little less privileged are able to now command a higher respect in the society, right, with the affirmative action and all. So this would be vertical movement, either upwards or downwards based upon how you do it. Then there could be horizontal also. That means you are still in the same social hierarchy, but in that social hierarchy you have moved up and down. For example, a father was a teacher, right? Now the son becomes a professor, right? So now if we say the group has, the family has not moved drastically in a societal hierarchy, but agar hum bole they are still in the middle income families only, but even then they must have moved from a lower middle class or a to upper middle class, right? So that is how horizontal movement happens when you remain in the same social hierarchy, in the same group. That means if you were here, just imagine you were here, you still remain in this group only, but पहले आप कहीं यहाँ थे, अब आप कहीं यहाँ पहुँच गए हो, right? So this is how it is, right? Social mobility. So with this we have completed our chapter, and I hope you guys enjoyed the lecture. Any suggestions, please post in the comment section below. Tomorrow we are going to start with a very special topic which has a lot of weightage, and from here onwards we are going to start very important topics in the syllabus. So please stay tuned, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.